So what we are doing tonight is sort of a roundtable discussion on curation with some very prominent curators in the area, all of whom have been in the curation business, if one were to say it, for more than 10 years. We have Barbara Galazzo from the Rockland Center for the Arts. We have Charlotte Mouquin, and please correct me, Charlotte, again. I think I got your name wrong. Mouquin?
It's Mouquin.
Mouquin, great, thank you. Of Pelham's Art Center. Kathleen Reckling of ArtsWestchester, and Paulette Ross, who founded the Nyack Art Walk. Barbara has a bit of a past as a glass artist. Charlotte, multimedia artist, working primarily in print and ink. Kathleen is an art historian, and Paulette, both shoe designer and actress. I was fascinated when I found out the names of the women that were going to be part of this panel tonight, because I have a little bit of a link to either each of them in person or their specialties. As Lisa mentioned, I used to write up in Provincetown. I was an art critic up there. I was also the editor-in-chief of Provincetown magazine for 3 years. And that required me to cover all the weekly gallery openings in the summertime, which, as you can imagine, if you know about Provincetown and its arts community, there were lots. And each week I would do a in-depth portrait of an artist, if not two, on some of the biggest weeks of the summer. It was a fascinating experience for me. And I also wound up having sponsored research into Cape Cod School versus the Hudson River School. So that kind of links me both to Charlotte and Kathleen. Then you've got, I was an arts and entertainment critic for Provincetown magazine, for Applause Online, a good number of them. And I used to direct performance for La Mama La Galleria in New York and Cortland Jessup Gallery up in Provincetown, including directing new works by Christopher Durang. I actually got to premiere one of Christopher Durang's works. And I've been an equity actor for 35 years, hooking me up to Paulette, who is also an old friend. And I'm the Nyack Village historian, hooks me up with Kathleen. And Barbara, I actually used to run the art glass and crystal gallery at Opera Gallery up in Provincetown. And I was associated with a few others up there. So I was excited when I saw each of your specialties of your own artistic work. And then I got even more excited when I saw examples of the work these women have done as curators. So why are we here? We're here for information and outreach and any additional starting or ending point along with the discussion of the arts that we have here that the women involved could tell us. Talk about your roles within the art community. How did you develop your skills as a curator? Over time, how did they change? And do you have any best advice for any artists out there? Let's start with Paulette Ross.
So what were those questions again? No.
Don't worry about that.
Thank you so much, JP and Lisa, for having me, for asking me. I'm very humbled to be with these talented women curators. I feel like I don't know whether I belong because their experience is so amazing. So I started the Art Walk when I opened my store. I had a boutique on Main Street in Nyack. I was designing my own line of shoes and bags and clothes from Italy. And it was a white canvas, the store. And to me, my product was the art. And I figured with the white walls, we need something else. We need reasons to bring people into the boutiques in Nyack. And also to highlight artists, because my goodness, we live in a village that is just amazingly talented. And so I decided to use the store as a gallery, whether it's clothing or shoes or bags or art. And so Art Walk started as a juried event, and very dictatorial.
Oh, but we loved it. I mean, it was very fun for us at Rand Realty. We were one of the locations that Paulette utilized. We usually had several artists because we were big enough to do that. And I have to tell you that as a group in that office, we very much enjoyed Art Walk, and some of the artist visions that came in were really very impressive.
Yeah, there was always a theme to Art Walk, and the requirement was all of their art could be what they do, but one piece had to be submitted that spoke to the theme. And based on all of those submissions, I had a jury that to this day, nobody knows who is on that jury, that helped to choose the one artist that would be in my store and be the poster person.
I
And
remember
it was
the veteran that you had in there.
Oh, that art walk was extremely important.
It
I mean, they
was.
all were,
Please.
but that was to speak to the veterans and to honor our veterans. And his art was done on paper that his nonprofit in New Jersey, Frontline Arts, made the paper out of the uniforms of soldiers. The veterans would bring their uniforms in and literally cut them up and mash them down, turn it into pulp, and then make paper out of it and create art. It was quite the awesome art walk. I had veterans coming in, just tears in their eyes that, you know, that we honored them as much as we did. And actually there's a permanent piece in Village Hall in Nyack that is enormous, and it's made on this combat paper. There's also a piece in Nyack, in Montefiore Nyack Hospital, where we thanked the nurses for all of their work during this COVID fiasco that we have here. And all of the thank you notes done by artists that had been in Art Walk were done on paper that was made out of old scrubs. So, you know, it's all very meaningful, and that is on permanent exhibition in the lobby of Montefiore Nyack Hospital.
That's very impressive. If you'll recall, I was in your store way longer than I should have been because I was supposed to be down at the office greeting the people coming in for Art Walk down there, but I was so fascinated by that artist and by your whole theory on that. And in the past, you and I have had discussions on the role of women in history. We've had a lot of very in-depth conversations. You tend to be a voice for the voiceless.
Oh, thank you.
Do you think that there's still a place in the world for art just for the hell of it, for fun, for the beauty of art? Or in our changing times, do we need more art that has some purpose behind it, that may have some message behind it? Or am I forcing too much there?
No, my answer would be yes and yes. I think you can have fun and make a statement. And I don't think that you have to create only to make a statement. I think both are important. And because an artist is an artist, it's up to them. It should be their passion. It should be what comes from them. I would force the issue in Art Walk. I would try to do something like you said of the time. I mean, this one was a very special art walk as well, because as an actress, I decided to have actors roaming the street, playing characters, female and male characters in our history in Rockland County. And they would just go around. It was a penny for your thoughts, and they would just spew something about themselves. Do you remember that one?
I totally remember, because you had a Cynthia Hesdra.
Correct.
And here, you know, in Rockland County, the first African-American millionaire in history, not a man, a woman, who did it on her own. And you had her walking. I thought that was a brilliant idea. And it also ties in the fact that though we tend to discuss the visual arts much more frequently, that those of us on the performing end of things, we're art too. And to have interactive, to have spoken word events is also important too. And you've done a brilliant job at bringing that. Now I'm going to switch over so that we can get everybody introduced. I believe Kathleen would be up next.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you for inviting me to join this group. There's a number of people on here that I've had a chance to work with, and Paulette, this is the first time I've gotten to meet you, and I'm so excited to learn more about what you do with the Nyack Art Walk. So thank you for having me this evening. I'm with ArtsWestchester. I'm Senior Deputy Director there, and I've been with the organization for nearly 11 years. For my own path into curation, I kind of came at it in a very direct but indirect way. When I went to university, I was really looking to become a journalist. I was interested in the process of storytelling and unpacking people's experiences and sharing those. And I always kind of wanted to do it around the creative industries and the arts, whether it be performance-based or the visual arts or fashion was a passion. And then when I took a required course, Masterpieces of Western Art, a sort of light bulb went off that I could always have a story to tell if I was talking about painters and sculptors and the arts. And so I sort of went the art history route and made sure that I was getting a lot of exposure to different aspects of that field. My first internship was in education with the Hudson River Museum. But I found in working with objects and in working directly with artists throughout my academic work, it was that connection, it was that process of storytelling through art, taking the experience of artists and their work and putting them together to give us an alternative platform for connecting and for having important conversations. That was what really drew me into curation. And I had a number of really incredible early opportunities in galleries and museums to kind of work very closely with really outstanding curators, Star Figura at the Museum of Modern Art, and Kathleen Milby at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. And that really sort of put me on a particular path. Of course, I came out of grad school at the peak of the economic crisis of 2008, 2009. I was working as an artist consultant and doing a whole bunch of freelance things, as well as, you know, being an athlete. That's a whole nother story, but certainly informed my curatorial practice. And when I came to ArtsWestchester, we had a very different kind of space. We didn't have a lot of long-term planning, and we were turning things over very quickly, but not necessarily sure what was coming next. What we did collaboratively, Janet Langsom, our CEO, and I, and also our arts committee, is we started to focus on what it was that we wanted to use our space for, and to think about back to what my passion was and why I was interested in curation was using the arts as an alternative way to talk about important things. And so we really focused our kind of presenting mission, and the types of shows that we do tend to be thematic. They're exhibitions that deal with the contemporary immigrant experience, gender identity, voting rights. But what has really changed for me over the course of the decade that I've been with the organization is that while I'm leading our gallery program, there's been this incredible burgeoning of interest in art and shared spaces. So a large portion of what I do now and how that's sort of, I have these kind of two curatorial practices. One is getting to deal with these complex subjects, and then the other is thinking about, you know, art beyond our walls and in the places where we live and where we gather. And so I work a lot with medical facilities and new developments to put art inside and outside. I got to work with Barbara on the selecting and managing the 10 commissions for the new Tappan Zee Bridge or the Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge, depending on how you feel about the title. And so that's
I'm the Nyack Village historian. I wouldn't mind if it was the Mario Cuomo Tappan Zee Bridge, but leaving the Tappan Zee part out would make me very, very angry.
I have put out both. You know, they were a client.
I understand.
So, you know, I know it's a sensitive subject. As a lifetime Westchester, right? I have my feelings as well that I'll keep those to myself. And so that's sort of developed a whole different approach. But at the bottom of it, I believe that I'm an advocate for artists and for the arts. I try to work very collaboratively with the artists that we work with. And I would say that that's probably, I think, the best part of what I do, and having an opportunity to be in front of artists and get to see and meet more of you is an opportunity I'm always excited to have.
Excellent. Now, we started a little bit of pre-chat before everyone else came on. And you're optimistic for the future of the arts. And that makes me very, very happy. Because there are times when I get a little bit negative. I start thinking, you know, wow, there's such an anti-intellectual, anti-arts movement kind of going on grassroots-wise, that funding is getting cut. And yet you remain positive. Please tell me why.
So, you know, you mentioned this in our pre-conversation. Yes, funding is hard. Particularly in places like Westchester, where there's a really wonderful not-for-profit sector, getting at corporate funding is difficult. Getting general operating support is difficult. But I think one thing, I mean, what we've really experienced is this interest in putting art outside of museum spaces, and there's been an incredible investment there from developers. And I think what people see, and I think have come to appreciate particularly during the pandemic, when we haven't been able to experience the arts live, is how much we need them, how much they help us connect, how much they are another way for us to share our experiences. Sometimes words fail us and we need something else to do. And so I'm optimistic because I have seen support at a government level come through. It's never enough, but it's there. There was level funding for NYSCA this year, which of course we'd like more, NYSCA, New York State Council for the Arts. But I think people have come to appreciate art and artists differently. And we have more artist opportunities and work than we've ever had before. And I'd like to think that that's a barometer for the future.
Okay, that's good to hear. Sometimes, having grown up here, a kid of New Yorkers going back to the 1840s, my grandmother was a Ziegfeld Follies girl. Having grown up here, we sometimes are cocooned a little bit. When I first started doing tours of the country and shows, one of the first places I got to was Toledo, Ohio. And one of the locals said, oh, you really needed to go see our art museum. And I was like, an art museum in Toledo, Ohio, because I'm a New Yorker and I'm a snob, right? Are you familiar with them at all?
I am actually a former classmate. I think is currently the executive director. He got a little bit of beef for his DE&I policy, but yes, I am familiar.
They're in a little bit of trouble. I was astonished when I went into that museum because here were all of these works of arts. There were Dutch masters there that they had a great representation of. There was a room full of El Grecos. And I kept going, I saw these in college in my art history books, and I always assumed it was the Toledo Museum of Art, not Toledo, Ohio. It's astonishing that they have that. And yet the people in the area almost forget that it's there. The glass gallery that they have is astonishing. Plus their super realism room, which is one of the best I've ever seen in any modern art museum. And yet the community isn't aware of it. How do we reach out more to our communities and let them know that the art is there? Or is your way of spreading it out from the insular museum and out into public spaces a way that we're going to get more people invested, to get more people involved, to get that art seen?
So you're raising a really important question about the challenges that all institutions face, which is how to develop audience and how to do it authentically. And I think that this is what a lot of places are grappling with as we see our patrons are skewing a little older, and we're thinking about our sustainability models, right? And this is a place like the Toledo Museum, which had a bit of a run-in because of their diversity, equity, and inclusion language. How we set up, I think the public art is really important in introducing people to the arts, but I think our institutions have to think about who we hire, the programs that we do to engage the community, and then what we put up in our galleries that reflect the community. And it's a lot of relationship development. It's getting out of your offices and getting into and engaging with stakeholders and making them feel a part of the institution, and then having programming that reflects that reflects those communities. And how each institution goes about doing that really depends on the institution. But in our case, we have a folk arts program, and we spend a lot of time like out in the field engaging with different groups. And then every program we present, and I think we do this also with our exhibitions, comes from what we see out there. And we engage those partners and those groups in presenting, so that the exhibition isn't necessarily, yes, it's curated by ArtsWestchester, or the program is presented by ArtsWestchester, but it really is done in collaboration with those that are presented. And how each institution does that, they have to find their path, but that is essential. The public art is great, but organizations kind of breaking down their own walls to get people in is fundamental to the sustainability of the field.
Cool. Okay, thank you. We got to get to Barbara and to Charlotte.
John, before you go
we'll be
further,
back with this.
John, before you go further, there's a couple of really good questions. Do you want me to save them till the end?
Well, yeah, until at least I get everybody's sort of opening statement. We'll probably be back at this in about 10 or a few minutes or so, but I need to talk to Charlotte and Barbara and get the people associated with them, because I did see one of those questions come up on my screen, and it is about self-represented artists.
Yes.
And I thought that was a great question.
Yeah.
Charlotte, you're up next.
Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us. It's really lovely to follow Kathleen. For those of you who do not know me, I'm an artist, I'm a curator, I'm an educator. I'm also the executive director of the Pelham Arts Center, and the Pelham Arts Center receives basic program support from ArtsWestchester, and they're such a powerhouse and such an advocate for the arts. They are truly incredible if you're not familiar. Also, real quick, I know we'll get to it in a minute, about some of those questions of where to go when you're an artist looking for opportunities. Number one, go see your local nonprofit art center and go from there. Start there and then go out from there. They're gonna help you, they're gonna guide you. Getting back to curating, I really agree with Kathleen. The way I view curating is really storytelling through the human experience. I mean, art is ultimately about connection, about how we connect with ourselves, the community around us, and it's ways for us to engage in some difficult conversations and everyday beauty in the world. So it really, art is a reflection of who we are as humans and as society. So that's one of the things that's really always drawn me into art. I am an artist, I do create art. I started out in art school, and probably my first curating was putting together some student work in a place in a corner of the school or something like that. And then being an artist, some of my first curating was curating my own work in some shows in some local community-minded co-op gallery spaces. I'm also an educator. So I have a BFA in fine art. I also have a master's of art in teaching. I was a high school art teacher for 2 years in Woodstock, Vermont. And when I was there, I also opened my own studio gallery for a hot minute. It was a 1-year adventure. But what was cool is I didn't know what I was doing, but I opened a space up and I put art on the wall, and I invited in the public to come look at some art. And that was pretty neat.
And they came, didn't they?
And they came. And at the same time, I've always loved nonprofit arts. I was volunteering for the Alliance of Visual Arts in Lebanon, New Hampshire. If you don't know, it is a spectacular organization. They also have artist opportunities. Literally, almost all nonprofit art centers have some sort of artist opportunity at least once a year. I was volunteering there, and then I was like, I gotta get back to New York. I miss the diversity. I gotta get in this New York contemporary art scene. So I studied and I got a master's from Sotheby's Institute the first year they were doing a contemporary art New York program. Kathleen, I feel like we finished grad school around the same time in that respect. It was tough out there at the economic recession looking for jobs. I interned, I volunteered, whatever gallery curating experience I could get, I jumped on it. I volunteered my time, I volunteered curating. I worked with a place called the Brooklyn Artist Gym that I volunteered with, a wonderful kind of like working out, but for artists to share studio space and exhibition space. So I really looked into some alternative venues.
When did you do string theory? Because as I mentioned, I actually saw that and I loved it.
Right. Yeah, that was a few years later. So my first curating job, how I got into it, it was my first gallery managing job in downtown Brooklyn. And I didn't make much money, but I jumped at the opportunity because I had full creative control. And I got to curate 7 group exhibitions in downtown Brooklyn, get to know the artist community, and hear those voices of artists, again, going back to the storytelling of human experience. So that was a really incredible time. And shortly after, I worked for Rush Philanthropic Arts Foundation, which I ran a gallery on Chelsea on 26th Street, as well as Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. And it was a gallery that was really founded for people of color and underrepresented artists, and to create education opportunities and curatorial opportunities. So with Rush Arts, I also mentored young curators, and I also worked with some incredible guest curators. The first guest curator I worked with was Hank Willis Thomas, and that was a truly amazing experience. If you do not know his work, please go look him up. And then, John, I also was curating regularly in Chelsea at Rush Arts and Corridor, and I thought, I want to expand. I want to get out there. I want to use my curatorial voice. And
Right.
I was familiar with field projects. They were my neighbors. Just upstairs, I ran a gallery at the 526 West 26th Street building.
A great place to be, people. You must go down there.
It is a great place to be. So I knew Jacob, and I asked him, he always has a guest curator for his open calls. Again, talking about artist opportunities, they're spectacular. It is a tiny little gallery, but they do some really incredible exhibitions. And I was honored I got to guest curate an exhibition there, I believe in 2017, and that was called String Theories. And it was looking through, oh my goodness, it must have been 800 artist submissions, and figuring out how I could show the most diverse amount of artwork in a gallery that's basically a 10-foot box. And I think I did a really great job given the small square footage and the diversity of the artists, from installation art, sculpture, painting, photography. We had it all in there, and it was amazing. And that show was very important, John. That's so cool that you saw it, because the title, String Theories, it really is about vibration and connection. I mean, that's why we're all here. We're all doing that through the
on the cosmic string.
Exactly. So that is, that's really what draws me to art, and I think the power of art. And I think the more art in people's lives, the happier they're going to be, because it really does enhance the quality of life, and it helps make us whole as humans. So whatever you could do for that, if it's public art, community art engagement, conceptual art, social justice, all of it is valid and important. And the more you can experience and see perspectives, the better. So that is how I built my career as a curator. At this point, I'm still under 40, and I've curated about 47 exhibitions, and it's pretty cool. I also, I'm the executive director at the Pelham Arts Center, so now I don't curate as much, but I did curate most recently in 2019. It was an exhibition called Influx that was about the immigration and artists, and again, using their voices. So I don't shy away from any subject matter, and I'm really proud of it, because art is a place for conversations to get started, and I truly believe that.
That's a great statement right there. Executive director is an amazing accomplishment and a wonderful thing, but please don't ever stop curating, because between what I saw on your resume and what I saw in that one show, you're very good at it. You have a way of getting those people's voices out there in a cohesive manner. And congrats on being the executive director, but please don't ever stop curating or being an artist yourself.
Thank you so much, John. I want to say one of the most important lessons I had, and you don't learn this in school, no one will teach you this. I learned the most about curating when I was volunteering at the Alliance for Visual Arts, and I got to watch a curator. It was something like a members exhibition, but I got to watch her move the art around the room and talk to me about, she was kind of talking to herself, but I was there. She wasn't really talking to me or asking for my opinion, but she was moving the art around, talking about the size, the scale, the color, and how the eyes are going to move around the room. And that is so important, because placement in a room, that's what moves people. The same way in a composition of a painting, well, you think about where your eye moves around a piece. When you're curating, you have to think about the entire experience and how people are going to move. Where are they going to be drawn in? Where do they get close to the wall? Where do they want to step back? And again, this all is absolutely mirrors our perspectives in life.
That's astonishing. Yes, it does. I remember learning from some of the artists up in Provincetown why certain pieces went certain places in an exhibition, and going, wow, they just changed my whole mindset on the way I look at rooms. And by taking that again to a next level from that, you've really said something I think very, very important, that it allows us, the rest of us, to see the world in a different manner. And I'm just impressed, very, very impressed. I'm going to move over to Barbara. We'll be back with the other three women shortly, because we have some questions that we're going to go to. And I still want the answer to my little fantasy question that I discussed with them, and I'll tell you all about shortly. Let's bring over Barbara. Thank you, Charlotte. Really great insight. Barbara, are you there?
Sorry.
No problem. Hello, local girl.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me. I've worked with everybody but Paulette here, and so it's a pleasure to be here. I kind of got my start a little bit different than Charlotte and Kathleen. I was an artist, and I was in a gallery, and they sold my work very well, and the woman had to retire due to health reasons, and a bunch of us got together and decided we should take over the gallery. Over the course of a couple of months, everybody fell away except 3 of us, and we weren't able to get that particular space, but we opened up another space in Brooklyn, and I was immediately pushed into getting exhibitions and doing publicity. So it was a great on-the-job learning experience, quite different from just being the artist, but I love it. I think it's a great way. I think that everybody, there's art for everybody, right? Everybody has a different style that they like, and it's fun to just put that out there in the world. Now, because I did start off, because I am a glass artist, most everything that I did in the beginning had to do with fine craft.
You stole my next question. I was going to say, just the fact that you are an artist who does 3-dimensional objects as opposed to something more 2-dimensional, did that affect your curation style? Do you wind up doing more in that venue?
In the beginning, yes, absolutely. But then I moved up to the Hudson Valley, and I was still had the gallery down in Brooklyn, but the commutes were getting quite long. And eventually I opened up a gallery in Cold Spring, and it became more that I was doing fine art and less crafts, which opened up a whole new set of experiences for me. And I found myself doing a little bit more on the social comment sort of exhibits. But I also like the idea of art for everybody, not just in a museum or in a certain spot in the house that has to have, you know, special lighting. And so because I work with a lot of art consultants and interior designers, I approached a developer and asked him if I could have one of his houses and to use. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to work with some interior designers. I'm going to get about 40 artists together, and we're going to outfit we're going to make a designer show house, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was to use as much art tastefully as possible, And it turned out fantastic. It's so good that the developer decided to ask us to stay on for like another 6 months. We were only supposed to be there for 2. And then from there, I wound up at Rockland Center for the Arts. And I do find that my curating has changed. It is much more of what's going on now and what people, what's going on in the social realm around me. But I will say that I do still tend to put a lot of fine craft
Excellent.
in our exhibitions. Yeah.
I have to say, the idea of approaching the developer and going is brilliant. My other job is I'm a realtor. And whenever I've had a listing in Nyack that had a storefront at the bottom, you know, if I was selling the whole building, I would do pop-up galleries to draw people into a vacant store, and then possibly consider either buying or renting the space and so on and so forth. So to hear that a group of artists got together and approached a developer, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
I approached the developer. I just got the artists together.
You got them to go with you.
Yeah, and then I wound up doing the publicity, but so I mean, I'm just a little bit different than the other curators.
Now, you worked in New York City and you've been working up here in Rockland County. When I was a teenager, God help us, back in the 80s, and was helping the Rockland County Board of Arts Board with certain things performance-wise, I was astonished at the amount of funding that artists in this area, Westchester, Rockland, the surrounds of New York City, I was astonished at how much money. I used to joke that it was falling out of the sky if you could put together a good proposal that you would be able to get funding. Are we very lucky in this area that there is an interest in the arts, that there is some money to be had for funding the arts, especially with you at Rockland instead of Westchester, which is so monolithically bigger than we are? Do you feel that this is still nonetheless a great location for artists who may want to bring their work out and into the world a little more?
I think so. I think it's much more so. I mean, it may not be as much as New York City, but I think it's still way more than if you live in the upper part of the state, or, you know. I think it's a great area for artists and for funding. I mean, well, Kathleen does our funding. We get funding from Kathleen.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to break this open because Lisa has some questions that have been asked. So now that we'll have everybody involved, please, ladies, keep your microphones open so that anybody can chime in at any point. And then I'll get to our question about the 9 muses that I asked you prior before we log off. So Lisa, if you would.
Sure. Someone was asking about, it's a deep question and it covers a lot. They're asking about aid, like funding for venues, for their shows, and for education for themselves and for younger people. So any insight, any recommendations under that large blanket?
I'd like to echo, oh, sorry, Charlotte, go.
Oh, no, Kathleen, you go ahead. I was going to say the same thing. Well, now I'm already talking. I'm sorry. I was going to say the same thing I just said in the chat, which, like, number one, go look at your local nonprofit art centers for exhibition opportunities. I mean, I know Arts Council of Rockland has them. I believe Roca has some opportunities for member exhibitions for their small boutique show. I know the Pelham Art Center, we have a new artist club. There's also the biennial Rutch Award for painting that we put out that has a big cash prize. We have a call for there are calls for public art all the time. I feel like Orange County Arts Council is putting that on. If you're not familiar with ArtsWestchester, again, go check them out. They're always posting so many opportunities right there. And especially with the Arts Live grants. Actually, Kathleen, take it over from there.
Yeah, so first of all, I highly recommend that you sign up for our artist opportunities, because we become a repository not just for our opportunities, but for other opportunities in the area. A lot of people come and post to us for opportunities I got an email today from Charles Fazzino's studio. He's looking for assistance. So those things come up to us all the time. We post them. You sign up for our Artist Opportunity emails, and you're going to get a nice delivery of stuff. And it's not just Westchester and Rockland. Sometimes it comes from further afield. We have a lot of funding opportunities that come around. Speaking to sort of the positivity or my positive feelings about the future of the arts, we have gotten an influx of funding from different entities, largely through the American Rescue Plan. So we're actually going to be having some new artist grant opportunities. I'm not quite ready to share all the details, but in the next few months, there'll be some new project grant opportunities. And we also, at least once a year, we have some kind of RFP for an exhibition, request for proposals, and then we're frequently posting opportunities for public art. But at a bare minimum, sign up for our artist opportunities. There's also a lot of really wonderful artist organizations like the Katona Museum Artists Association, like the Mamaroneck Artists Guild, Blue Door Gallery. These are member organizations, but they have a really wonderful network of artists. They do really great professional development, and they have exhibition opportunities. So in addition to getting to know your local arts agency, be on the lookout for these artist groups, because they really they do a really great job of helping artists get their work out there.
I was going to say, yeah, like Charlotte, Roca has, I mean, not so much during the pandemic, sorry, but normally we have some open calls, usually once a year. We also have member show, a student show, and our holiday show. Those are open to anyone. But also, I believe Charlotte just posted, I mean, like Cafe has open calls, you know, ArtsWestchester, and I would highly recommend as well if you want to join like a co-op of artists, because you start to feed off of each other and you start to learn where to go for, you know, for opportunities.
Somebody also asked that their daughter loves to do art, and are there any available scholarships for children? They're obviously looking for resources for funding for children's art education.
They didn't say what age, right?
They didn't.
I mean, I know Roca does have some scholarships, especially in the summer. We do have some scholarships for people for classes as well during the year.
I got to plug Pelham Arts Center again here, but Pelham Arts Center, we have scholarships for all ages. We give out $2,000 in scholarships per season, so $8,000 per year. Plus, we have a separate fund that's specifically for teenagers interested in art school. That's called the David Uscali Scholarship, where we provide free art education for teenagers that really need the support to build their portfolio. And then also, I mentioned the Artist Club, but that's a nice affiliate group that we have as well. In fact, tomorrow I'm leading a discussion about writing artist statements and bios and talking about these nitty-gritty artist proposals. And there are so many opportunities in these networks for professional development for artists. I mean, things like what you're doing, Lisa, with Rockland Arts Festival is pretty amazing. And I think the more you stay engaged and educate yourself and be aware, the better advantage you're going to have.
I agree. That's great.
So is it time for my super question now? Okay. For those who were not on our pre-talk, I had asked the curators a question, just something that would help us all get a focus on their ideas and see how much their visions match the visions they come up with. I said, suppose the 9 muses granted you a blessing for you to create an exhibit, installation, or event that would be perfect, the perfect one in your career as a curator. There's no expense limits, there's no limit of space and time, all things optimally your choice of the perfect art happening, no limitations. Please tell us what artist, anywhere from the cave paintings back in Lascaux to a future artist, what media or medium would it be, anything from finger painting up. what venue would it be? Anywhere from the Louvre to a lunar base or a farmer's field in Bethel, New York, or whatever. And finally, what message would you be telling us with that? So let's start off with Paulette.
Okay, well, the message would be communicate. Again, as an actress, interpersonal communication, and I think we're losing it. There aren't enough emojis in the world to express my emotions on a continuous basis. And I just can't do this. You know, if you ask me 2 questions in a text, I'm picking up the phone. So I long for communication. I also think with what's going on in society today, we've lost that because, you know, if you don't agree with me, then the hand is up and I'm crossing the street. I don't want to have a conversation. So that would be the theme, communication. The way that I would want to do it is not just the paintings on wall. I would like to intersperse acting because that's communicating. I think it works. I think the artists have to be there. I think it dispels that frightening feeling of walking into an art gallery or a museum when you don't know anything. When you have a personal connection, you tend to, you don't feel like I have to have all this knowledge. And I saw that happen when the public would just walk into a store and look at the art. And the artist I made engage with the public. Like, you have to be your best salesperson, you know? And JP, you know that from acting, you have to sell you.
Yes, I would like to audition for your dream event, by the way.
And I would like it to travel. So you wanted to know where. I would like it to go all around so that it touches people in different places. And maybe the theme gets tweaked a little bit, or the presentation of the art, or the little skit, or whatever it is that's done, matches the location a little bit better, so it relates to the people that are coming to see it. But that's where I would go. As far as who, you know, if I could go back in time, you know, there are just so many amazing artists and actors. If I had people of today, I would just try to make it as diverse as possible. And oh my gosh, there's a pool of people. I can't even name any one particular or 2 particular artists, but that's what I would do.
That's very congruent with what you said, and that's sort of kind of exactly what I expected. So thank you. It's nice to know that you're actually equate the inside and the outside of the same person. Charlotte, you're up next.
Okay, well, this is a huge question.
I know, I'm sorry.
I really thought about it, John, since those 5 minutes before this call started. There's one show that I've done previously that I would love to do twice as big in a museum, and that one was Medium Black. And that was all about the artwork was all black in all sorts of different materials, installation art, photographs, painting, fiber. Like, it was just very cool. It was a very cool show. It was very poignant. That was done back in 2016, so it's been a little while. And I know curators have done that over the years. I know Pace had that huge show, but I had a lot of fun doing mine, and I'd love to double the size of it and do it somewhere bigger. That's one of my answers. My second answer, I'm sorry, I have 3 answers. My second answer is a show I've been percolating around with, which I don't know when or where this is going to happen. Barbara, maybe we'll do it together in like 5 years. It's like a play. And I think there's been a lot of shows with that theme, but I've just seen some really, I think we all need something uplifting.
Oh gosh, yes.
I'd love to do something with some large scale, colorful things that are just bring out the joy. You know, it is a dark world out there, to go total opposite of what I just said. And really going for like joy and play and large
scale. But they balance off each other. Yes, we can see the reality of the blackness, but we can also look for the joy. Yeah. Your third answer.
My third answer, and this is a bigger one, and this goes to, you know, if I've got all the magical wish genies and all the big budget and all
Thank
the
you.
fantasy stuff and all of that. I mean, it's kind of a big goal for me, but I have always dreamed of having a huge exhibition space with an artist residency program where that art is inside and outside and rotating, and just to be a place where there is that communication with art and with ourselves and with nature. So I really hope to see that space come to life someday. You might have to give me 20 years.
And some funding.
I don't know. But that would be a really spectacular place to see come together. And when I really think about it in curating, we're all curators, right? Because we all have to curate our life. So that's what you got to really think about, right? We got to build our own dreams. So that's one of mine. And give me 15, 20 years, I'll do it. So.
Charlotte, you need to write down some of your observations on life because you're a very wise woman. Very wise woman.
I did recently start a blog. I'll put some of the musings up there.
Excellent. I'll look for it. Thank you for that answer. Next, we'll move on to Barbara.
Well, I think this is because I particularly work in glass, but I believe that color. Okay, so I think I would have an exhibit based on happiness because it's been so depressing lately. And I think that color, the vibrations of certain colors bring that about. So I would have an exhibit that I like Paulette's idea that it travels. And I would work with Leno Tagliatra, who's a Italian glass artist. But I would have it so that there were workshops along with the exhibit, and there were children who would work alongside adults, because I think too many adults have lost that part of themselves, and that's the joy. And I think that what this pandemic has brought out is that people have been so isolated that they actually want to get their hands dirty in art and want to create something. So that would be my exhibit.
Awesome. I desperately want to learn how to blow glass. I have for decades. It's always been one of those, when I get a little older, I'm going to. I wouldn't mind ceramics either, except I hate getting my hands dirty. I have Lady Macbeth syndrome. I always have to wash my hands if they get off. But glass, it's just so beautiful, and I love your vision for that.
Well, you could do fusing. You don't even have to do blown glass, and you don't. You can do it by yourself. Glass blowing, you have to have two people.
Yes, but thank you. I love that, and I love the idea of children, because Annie Dinerman wrote a song called "The Child in Me Again," about how we sometimes need to reconnect with that little boy or that little girl or that little person inside of us. And find the joy and the wonder and the imagination again.
Yeah,
and
when I just will say this, when I opened the gallery in the Hudson Valley after I moved up here, every January I would invite any schools that were within a 60-mile radius to participate in an exhibit of high school students. And it was one of the most inventive exhibitions every year. It was so much fun because the kids are all excited, I mean.
That's excellent. Thank you. And now finally, Kathleen, let's hear your dream event.
Oh, I'm definitely on a panel of kindred spirits, I think.
And you all mesh together so well. You're riffing off each other. It's great.
I feel like we might have to all do a project together, because I think that there's some things that we all kind of want to realize and overlap. Sort of similar to Charlotte, I have kind of two answers for this. The first is, one, I feel a little ill-equipped for this because I feel fortunate that I think I've gotten to do a lot of my dream projects and work with a lot of artists that were kind of on my wish list. I was a little ballsy at who I go and ask. Worst they can say is no. But we have an exhibition that's opening in April called Who Writes History, where we're looking at how did we get to certain mainstream narratives, and how can we be more inclusive in our recounting of the past and present. I would love to do that even on a bigger scale too. Like I love the artists that are participating, but I'd love to get at an artist like James Luna, who's no longer with us, but his piece, Artifact Piece, which was a performance, really, really challenged the institutions of museums and how meaning is made. And I would, I'm always very interested in looking at the institutions in the art world and sort of challenging them to do more and invite more. So that's sort of one show I'd like to just like blow up even more than we're doing it. And I'm very excited about the exhibition that we happen to be mounting. But I think like Charlotte and Paulette and Barbara, I'd love to do an exhibition that is residency based, but is about just exuberance and joy and lives outside of an institution. Yeah, and is out there. And artists that I would love to work with in something like that is an artist like Jeffrey Gibson, who does deal with complex ideas like the LGBTQ plus experience and the place of
Boy, would I love to talk to him as a survivor of the gay liberation movement from back in, I thank you for that particular one.
Yeah, and he's also an Indigenous artist who's always grappling with those complex identities and layers, but his work is just, it's beautiful and it's joyful and it's full of color, but it's serious, so it gets to be both things. So so those would sort of be my two projects: Who Writes History on a 6-floor scale with outdoor stuff, and then an exhibition of residency based that's outdoors and is celebratory and invites the community in.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I had a feeling you were going to be the one who summarized it all, but so many wonderful viewpoints, so many incredibly impressive women on this call tonight. I'm so honored to actually be the host of this. I've learned a lot and gained some new insights, and I definitely have some new people to follow. Lisa, is it time for me to wrap up?
Yes, and thank you, John, so much. This exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations. It was a fantastic night.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And please have me back anytime. But no, I enjoy this. And obviously you can tell that I have enthusiasm for the topics as well. To our 4 very impressive women, Barbara, Charlotte, Kathleen, Paulette, thank you for being with us tonight. And for all of you who joined us, thank you very much. Join us again at our free upcoming arts events and in-person happenings through February 7th. See, I was right earlier. Please see more of the artist's incredible works and visit the events calendar on the festival's website at www.rocklandartsfestival.org. We look forward to seeing you. Lisa D'Amico, thank you so much for having me here tonight. And you're still just the wonderful person that I met, 20-something years ago, and you haven't changed. How does one do that? Please tell me.
Okay, you're in the okay. John, this is a great night. Thank you so much, curators. I think we all had such a great journey with each and every one of you. We've learned a lot, and I think we're even more excited about the arts now than we were before this started. So it's fantastic. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Night, everyone.